to my YouTube channel. My name is Shivangi Lahoti, aka Your Designer Didi, and this is Designer Shala presents Life After Design School. In every episode of Life After Design School, I focus on success stories in the design industry and how design graduates, after designing and graduating from different fashion schools across India and internationally, make a mark in this industry. For all of you kids who keep asking me कि दीदी पढ़ाई तो कर लेंगे उसके बाद क्या होगा, जॉब कैसी लगेगी, this place is your answer, and this place is the place where you find solutions and answers to all of those questions that you may have. So today's episode focuses on one such design success stories and one such journey of a very dear friend, Rucha Raje. She is actually an example for all of you kids who keep asking me when is the right time to start my career in fashion. What if I've done a bachelor's in something else? Can I actually pursue a degree in fashion later? Do I actually have the time now? Am I not too old? Well, Rucha started her journey much later, and she is an absolute perfect example of how, if you have the passion for fashion, it's never too late. After having graduated in economics, she actually pursued an MBA in marketing and then later realized that she wants to pursue her passion in fashion, and that resulted her in leaving India and her very, very comfortable job in media and moving to Paris for 2 years to pursue her master's in fashion and luxury management at Istituto Marangoni. And then later she came back to India, and that's when her design journey, or her fashion journey rather, started. So let's get started and get to know Rucha and get to know how she pivoted and navigated through the industry and how she aced being part of not one, two, but the three top multi-designer stores, luxury fashion multi-designer stores in India. Hi, Rucha. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, which is Life After Design School. I have known you personally for the last 5 years. Our journey as friends started back in Ensemble. But I would love for our audience to get to know you as a person and get to know you as Rucha Raje. A designer, a design enthusiast, a design lover, and somebody who's been so closely associated with fashion for the last 5 years, has worked with some of the biggest multi designer stores across the country in the capacity of being on store and being a senior merchandiser and actually curating everything for them. Let's hear your story.
Okay, that's a lot of adjectives on a Saturday morning. Thank you, Shivangi. Hi everyone. Okay, so I haven't done this before, so I excuse my lack of professionalism possibly. So I'm Rucha. I technically do not come from a fashion background per se in the context of my bachelor's. I actually come from a media background. I've had a lot of media sales experience, wherein instead of selling a product, I was used to selling a service per se. I have done an MBA in marketing, and post which I started working in the media industry. So I was in the media industry for about 1.5 years, and if I may say so, I was really, really bad at it. It was just so not my cup of tea. I fumbled, and I was a little carefree. Carefree being a euphemism, if I may say so. A bit careless actually. And so I've had a very close friend by the name of Bosky, who is a stylist, who has been a stylist for the longest time. And because she's a close friend, and you know how stylists are so well paid, I used to on multiple occasions have a habit of assisting her in shoots. So all the going to the model's house and making her try the clothes, bringing clothes from XYZ not very savory locations and getting them prepping them up for the shoot and all of that. That's exactly effectively when my curiosity, or rather my interest in the industry, began. Now I just an FYI, for example, someone like me, I have started working in the industry at a fairly later age. Typically, when someone's interested or obsessed with the industry, they easily start at the age of 18 or something. I am someone who possibly effectively started at the age of 23, 24 kinds.
Right.
Because that is when A, the interest developed, B, that is when I realized that just having an interest is not enough, and also I do not have a technical fashion designing background per se, so I'm not like a designer. So
But
I
you
chose to
but you do have great aesthetics, and you do custom clothing every now and again for friends and family. And I've seen your work, and I know that there is a designer in here and in here.
maybe next life for sure. So so that's when I think when the curiosity and the interest sort of peaked. I realized that because it's such a detail-oriented industry or such a technical industry in its foundation per se, unlike marketing or etc., which is fairly generic. I think I personally actively chose to take some education in it, and that is when I decided to pursue my masters. And I went to Paris. I've done my, and that's when I chose to study my masters in fashion and luxury brand management. Mm, fairly learning experience, considering the whole classroom literally was full of different nationalities. There were Italian girls, there were Brazilian girls, there were Russian girls. There was a Swiss chick, there was a German chick, there was an Indian chick from Delhi, and then there was a Filipino chick. So yeah, absolute fusion. Um, and I managed to do like one or two fashion. So they have something called as fashion showroom, which typically happens after the fashion week, wherein buyers from all across the world sort of commemorate. They sort of come in one area and start choosing work for their particular store, which would suit their aesthetic, which would suit their TG. So those are the kind of showroom weeks that I participated in, and those were an absolute eye opener, because you literally could see absolutely obscure cities and towns from which these buyers came to buy all these brilliant designer chic stuff for their extremely stunning looking boutique stores, which was pretty cool, considering when it comes to fashion, everyone just starts thinking of these absolute A-listers, and be it your Zuhair Murad, or be it your Balenciaga, be it your Balmain, be it your Chanel. That's pretty much what it's visually. Immediately, that is the idea that comes to mind. Or for that matter, in India, it's usually a Rohit Bal or a Manish Malhotra is when it strikes a bell in fashion per se, because they're just so very well known. They've done a fabulous job, obviously, of being so very well known.
Correct.
So yeah, that happened, and then I chose to come back because there was no job over there, and so I managed to get an internship in Goa. It was for a period of 6 months. It was literally on the beach, at a place in Ashwem, near La Plage. La Plage is a brilliant French restaurant. The pâtés are amazing. I'll not go there. So I worked. So this lady, Danielle Limbanua, is the lady that I chose to work for. She had chosen to debut that season with this shop called the Bohemian Project. Now the Bohemian Project predominantly was a curated, beautiful sort of a concept store, and they had created sort of a designer village kind of a vibe, wherein a couple of these niche labels had popped in. There was Nanaki, there was Shades of India, there was Napadori, there was a jewelry label, there were a couple of other names. It was a beautiful, fun, aesthetic area. And so she had predominantly curated a lot of vintage textiles, some lovely pashminas, vintage lassi glasses, your beautiful patchwork quilts from Kolkata, from Bengal to be precise, kantha quilts, if I'm not wrong, and menswear. And the combination, though, is so varied. It just, the amalgamation was so beautiful, and those 6 months were an absolute riot. So much fun, and oh, by the way, so much of hard work, because there was effectively just me and another chick who were basically working that store. So we were there all day long. we used to like sort of go there at 8:39 in the morning and be done by 6:37. And especially during the peak months, it was way longer because I mean the business was obviously flowing in those months. It was a 6-month gig because it's a seasonal store. It's right on the beach, so it's not possible otherwise to have a store right on the beach, especially during the rainy season. It's just not practical, and there's barely any clients. And this is sort of a very boutique chic area of Goa, not your Baga and Kalangoots of the world. Very very obscure. There's Mabea on the side. The beach is so clean. No one wants to massage your legs or any other part of your body. Best scene ever, and the nicest people around. So yeah, fun experience.
How
And
you came
then
back to India and started working with an internship. So that's how you actually began your career in fashion.
yes,
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 you really did start from the scratch and then moved up ladder gradually.
yes,
And that's
yes,
when Som happened, and that's when we met.
yes. Wherein Shivangi was a head designer, and I was a fashion consultant. Um,
And we hit it off
I remember
immediately,
Shivangi
I'd
with lots
say.
of anarkalis
And
and long hair.
hey, I still
And
have the long hair.
yeah, you do. And like the big jhumkas and the bindi, that not much has changed, thankfully. And yeah, I remember this extremely upstanding citizen with with this love and need to do something brilliant in the industry, be it designing, be it offering her services. You all love her, so it's very evident that she's clearly made a mark of herself. So yeah, that's how we
Not
met.
quite there, not quite there, but thank
You're
you.
there, you're there, you're there. Modest again, modesty, but you're there. So yeah, and yes, so now that's basically effectively how I per se got my first full-time job, um, wherein I was really understanding, because I'll tell you what, Goa was very relaxed in the context of pushing for numbers, because they were the family did not have that kind of a I want numbers every day, crunching numbers, how much sale did you do? They used to literally never ask us this question.
Yeah.
And they themselves were very aware of the fact that because it's such a vacation area, people are relaxed, people are chill, they want to spend money, they're happy. You just have like a nice conversation with them, you make them understand what is the product all about, why is the pricing the way it is, what's the curation about, maybe talk something about the textiles, tell them a story. They always want to know the story. Never ever not tell a story while selling clothes, please. Like seriously, at any given point in time, it helps. I realize this. You may not have a sale at the moment while telling the story because they're probably looking for something else and they may not have liked some content in your store, but they will most certainly remember you. They will most definitely come back to you, and they will most certainly at some point buy from you. And I think this is effectively what I have massively stuck by, because I am not, so I'll tell you what, that there's possibly nothing wrong with being a pushy fashion consultant, because a lot of times the people who are buying from you genuinely do not understand what the fabric's all about, what the textile is all about, why are they paying that kind of money, why should they pay so much money for so much embroidery, considering there's so much knockoffs available. But that's exactly when you can come in and make them understand the whole journey of the particular outfit, of the particular garment. It may be a 5-minute deal. Yeah, it may be a 5-minute thing, it may be a 15-minute thing, but it's just so absolutely necessary, especially in luxury.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's effectively what I learned in Ensemble. Apart from, of course, visual merchandising and placement of the racks, why a certain outfit needs to be put on a mannequin, and why a certain outfit needs to be on the hanger, something just on a rack. A small detail like this also goes a long way in making your garment sell. Now that garment is probably put on the mannequin either because it's difficult to sell, or because it's just so absolutely stunning that it will pull in the concerned TG There could be multiple facets. It's probably an outright purchase. Maybe that's why it's put on the mannequin so that it sells, so that you're able to liquidate your inventory.
As a merchandiser, as a visual merchandiser, as a store manager, these are some things, as a consultant, these are some things you need to take care of while you're sitting on all of this inventory. And in luxury stores, of course, the stakes are really high. So you have to be careful that time and again, every month, you reach those numbers, you reach those sales figures. And at the same time, you liquidate on stock that you feel is not an asset for you and needs to move out. So you have to create like a balance, which is great. And from there, Ensemble is one of the oldest multi-designer stores in India. And one of the most, they're basically the pioneers in the industry. They started, they brought concept to this country. And from there, you moved to Aza and worked as a senior merchandiser there. And from being on the store floor and doing everything hands-on, suddenly you moved and took a switch and you were behind the scenes. You were managing their online sales. You were managing everything at the back end. You were managing their e-commerce and selling products worldwide. How was that switch like? What was that, all about?
One of the biggest eye-openers being that what sells offline does not necessarily sell online. I had such absolute faith and confidence in selling an Anamika Khanna online, because I had sold it. Anamika flies off the racks. Like you just like have to run after it. It's that iconic label.
Absolutely.
But that's definitely not the case online, because online typically what happens is your the ticket size. When I say ticket size, I mean the price of a product immediately sort of shrinks, and usually an average ticket size of a bill, of a basket would not be probably more than 25,000, which was an absolute shocker, surprise, etc. Considering I have so very easily, with not a lot of effort, sold things worth in lakhs in a day's time to a customer, probably because they were in the store physically available. Also with e-commerce, a lot of people, I don't know if they're aware of this fact or not, but for a lot of Indian luxury e-commerce websites, India is surprisingly, or not surprisingly, not the biggest market. It's the diaspora of Indians which tend to live abroad, especially in the US and the UK, are some of the biggest buyers that these e-commerce websites tend to have. And now their priorities sort of are completely aligned in a different manner compared to the Indians who live here, and the way they celebrate festivals or the way they wear a certain kind of clothes. So those guys over there, they will typically, they feel a little way more Indian, I would say, rather than Indians who live in India feel Indian. I've always observed that, a bit of schizo scene happening there. So they naturally tend to pick up things which are massively glamorized by Bollywood, which do get a lot of traction, if I may say so, with the help of celebrities and etc. And they are also again, not very surprisingly price conscious. Not only because they're buying online, but because their need base is completely different, and the kind of crowd that they hang out with, they don't want to go all Abu Jani on their wedding kinds. They will probably, for their own wedding, buy like a extremely understated but equally expensive Rohit Bal, with his lotus motifs and his khadis and his subtle embroidery on the side, because that's something probably that they're looking for. So the aesthetic varies. Also, the price is a huge driver, huge.
Okay.
And so yeah, that I think, and also the way here, when people visit the stores and keep inquiring about the fabric, keep inquiring about the embroidery, keep inquiring about the textile, about kantha, about your patola, about whatever. Internationally, not so much. Not so much.
All they care about is the colors, or just
yes. It has to pop.
Yeah.
It just has to pop. Like, oh, I look nice in this, so okay, I'll pick it up.
Correct.
I'm not going to look at how it was made, or I'm not going to put in that kind of an effort because, hey, not needed. It's just something that I need. It's
Correct.
fairly need based.
Correct.
And again, the East Coast and West Coast spending also again differs. The Silicon Valley, because of the Silicon Valley, spends way more than your East Coast, your New Jersey, or I've seen the numbers, so they
Wow.
most certainly speak themselves. Yeah.
So after moving from in-store to offline to online, I'm sorry, after making that switch to online and then working at Raza, you moved to another big multi-designer store, which is Ogan, which is, I think, the top
Yes.
three. You've gotten them all in your CV, in your kitty. You started with Onso,
Yes.
Raza, then Ogan.
I didn't expect, but yes, surprisingly yes. I mean, I
I
always thought that eventually
always have had
sorry,
faith in you for that. I've always had faith in you for that, for doing great things. And
more than I've ever had.
absolutely, because I don't know why you don't, because you honestly have so much knowledge and so much attention to detail is paid in every product that you sell. And your eye on designers, you're keen. I've seen you work so hard in your career. I've seen you actually visit events, physically get designers on board for whichever, brand or store you're working with at that particular point of time. You've always gone above and beyond because you've always been that kind of person. And I think it comes from sheer passion for fashion. But
Yes, cheesy as it may sound, yes, sheer passion for fashion is it. Just
absolutely.
too much love happening there.
So how is that experience now? Now that you're in Ogan, you're actually on the store floor in a very senior capacity, you're managing the store, doing so well for yourself, and actually, calling the shots, right? Because you get to decide what goes where. You're sitting with the managers, sitting with the merchandisers from Delhi, and just how does it feel like in that space of power where you're kind of, I mean, of course, with Azza, you were doing similar stuff because you were the senior merchandiser there as well. But how?
I actually so Ogan is different in the context of Onsom and Azza because predominantly because of the way they pursue younger names consistently with absolute consistency, and how aggressively I think they give them a platform along with established names, and it's the balance that they so beautifully manage. And I mean, just please go and visit their website whenever you guys have the time. Oh my god, their shoots are out of the world. They're so well thought of, which I think certain you know certain brands tend to lack, unfortunately. It could be for various reasons. It could be cost, it could be, I don't know, lack of aesthetic, or it could be their perspective of an aesthetic. But Ogan is sheer nostalgia, love, and at the same time a lot of youth. It's unexplicable. It's just beautiful. And the amount of visual merchandising that I have personally hands-on learned with their help is something which is like there's no words for it. It's been a brilliant journey there. Like the decision and the focus and the consistency of their visuals, which you may observe if you observe a little keenly, a little closely on on their Instagram page. The consistent language, even during the pandemic, like the language was flowing. It's again just like Onsom, they're also 30 in the industry, which and have like the highest number of stores at this point of time. They have 5 stores in Delhi, 1 in Bombay, 1 in Hyderabad. They also have a beautiful website, and it's the kind of gigs that they do year on year. It's their commitment to experiment with different manners of platforms, with and it's just not revenue oriented. they're constantly pushing, themselves out of their comfort zone. I mean, they are brilliant and just absolutely, no one's pushed the envelope so much as Ogan has. That's been at least been my point of view. Like Bungalow 8 was stunning, and it was just so sad when it shut down, because Bungalow 8 really did try to push the envelope, but maybe somewhere certain strategic decisions may have gone wrong. I really don't know. But I think that's where Ogan just successfully just keeps doing it. They just always open to the idea of experimenting, I think, and that's mainly because of Ashti, I'm guessing, the founder. Brilliant lady, like genuine love and respect. She and Tina for a nostalgia, and she for all the youth. Absolute love.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of Tina myself. Okay, closing this on a note where I'm sure young designers and design graduates are currently watching you, and if you have anything to share with them, any key insights, you've shared plenty, but like any advice, any suggestion, any tip on how to make it in this industry, because you come from a space with immense knowledge in retail and luxury retail. So would you have anything to say?
Not to sound pompous, but I think do not sort of be an ostrich. Do not keep your head in the ground, kinds. And please do not judge. This very often happens in fashion, because it's a creative industry. Just the creative juices are flowing at such a abnormal rate that everyone's just constantly wanting to get offended, or there's just so much. It's very easy to be dramatic in the industry. It's expected. If it's working for your advantage, by all means do what needs to be done. But I think try not to focus on the tone at which the work has been given, because it's just so very easy to take things personally. And I've done that. I've been there, unfortunately. Try to focus on what has been told rather than the way it's been told. And that's, I think, when you will start actually learning the ropes of this industry. That's exactly when you will start learning that, oh, I'm not being victim. Oh, I'm not being yelled at. Oh, I'm actually being taught. Like I know it sounds very, very textbookish, very garden variety sort of piece of information, but it really has helped me, because I tend to get anxious when someone starts, saying things in a certain manner, and then I really have to like sort of focus my energy on concentrating as to what is it that they're saying, rather than the way that they are saying. It does help, I feel. I think it helps in sustenance more than anything else.
Correct. And so basically it's all about how you approach something, your perspective. Like, don't think and don't take things literally on how they're being said to you, but just...
Oh yes, please don't. Because they don't mean it. They don't have the time to mean it. There's just always so much work in retail. There's like never not work in retail. हमेशा काम रहता है, हमेशा.
But for designers who want to reach out to retail, and for designers who want to work with brands like, Ansam, Aza, Ogan, all the big luxury stores who want to showcase, would you have any advice for them that this is something you should keep in mind as, designers while you're designing for the audience?
Be seen in their native sort of areas where they go to, water themselves or feed themselves kinds. And when I mean be in their like sort of visual areas, like be a part of possibly design one, if you can, if the capital is not too much, if it's practically possible. And I highlight on practically, because there's serious amount of money that goes in exhibitions like these. Exhibitions is one brilliant way of being picked up. Also, Ogan tends to do this something called as Artisans Bazaar, which is usually under 15 or 20K kind of price point, where they feature those designers. So maybe start there, and slowly sort of keep going ahead. Definitely do fashion weeks, because this is always where all the merchandisers are. Always, forever. मतलब हमारा वो ground है जहाँ हम रोज मिलते हैं, to have like a cup of tea and something else. But always be there. Like more than just, calling and, hey, I want to put my stuff in your store. How can I go doing that? They get these requests all day long. It is their job. It is their profile. So they will keep getting it. But, and I mean, fact of the matter is, the only reason why you are usually chosen or seen is because you're that striking. That's the only reason. Because at the end of the day, it's all business. It's nothing personal. Trust me. Unless and until they are able to give you business and you're able to give them business, it's just not going to work out for both of you. So, and especially when the culture is all about consignment, like you just have to constantly be at it. So, and that is what the culture is currently.
Absolutely.
So be seen in the right, hunting grounds or whatever.
Awesome. I think this is sound advice for all our designers. Be seen in the hunting ground. And make sure you're visible at the right places. Events, exhibitions, pop-ups are one such places. Fashion shows, fashion weeks, of course, are the places. But just be visually seen, and of course, keep doing good work so that you're noticed. Because that's the only way of getting a place in one of these luxury boutiques and these multi-designer chains. Awesome, Rucha. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been so insightful and so amazing just catching up with you. I think this pandemic has literally been a blessing in disguise because we're getting to do this. And you've helped me help future generation of designers, design entrepreneurs, and design students. So thank you so much for being a part.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey you guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you've reached till the end of this video, make sure you give it a big fat thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and like and comment and share this video with anybody and everybody who you feel will benefit from it. Let's make this place bigger. This is me signing off. Bye.